3 silver chains wrapped around my throat before I even saw them coming. I hit the ground hard, the impact driving air from my lungs as Trinity warriors materialized from the forest like shadows given form. Their suppression collars snapped around my wrists, magic flaring hot against my skin, designed specifically to sever my connection to silver blood power. "Got her," one of them shouted. "The Luna's down, move in." This was bad. Really bad. I'd been traveling back to Blackwater territory after 6 months away, 6 months spent learning to control abilities that could enslave thousands. I'd been careful, cautious, keeping my power dampened so I wouldn't draw attention. Apparently not careful enough. "Where are your escorts?" the lead warrior snarled, yanking my head back by my hair. "The silver blood bitch doesn't travel alone." He had no idea how wrong he was about that. Kira and 5 other warriors exploded from the tree line like avenging angels, their movements coordinated with the kind of precision that came from surviving 30 years of being hunted. Silver blades flashed in the moonlight, real silver, the kind that could kill wolves permanently if wielded by silver blood hands. The ambush turned into a bloodbath in seconds. But more Trinity warriors were coming. I could hear them crashing through the underbrush, could smell the silver weapons and suppression magic they carried. This wasn't a random patrol, this was a coordinated strike designed to capture me before I could reach Blackwater's protection. "How many?" Kira gasped, using her blade to cut through the chains at my throat. "Too many," I replied, feeling my power surge back as the suppression collar shattered. Silver light erupted from my skin, and I reached out with senses that could feel every hostile wolf within 100 yards. 23 enemies. Against 7 of us. Terrible odds. Unless I used the abilities that Trinity was so terrified of. I grabbed their pack bonds with metaphysical hands and squeezed. Half of them dropped instantly, their wolves forced into submission so complete they couldn't even stand. The other half, the ones with magical protection, kept coming, but now the numbers were manageable. "Go!" I shouted to Kira. "Get to Blackwater, warn them Trinity's moving early." "I'm not leaving you." "That's an order." Silver light pulsed from me in waves as I held the disabled warriors down while fighting off the ones still mobile. "My mate needs to know they're coming. Now." Kira hesitated one more second, then ran. I turned to face the Trinity warriors still standing, feeling power build in my chest like a caged storm. 6 months ago, I'd been a powerless healer forced into a binding ritual. 6 months ago, I'd awakened to abilities that terrified an entire species. Now I was about to show these hunters exactly why their ancestors had committed genocide against my kind. "You want the silver blood, Luna?" I said, letting my voice carry the resonance that made it impossible to ignore. "Come and take her." 60 seconds earlier. Let me tell you how I ended up fighting for my life in the middle of hostile territory. 6 months ago, I was human. Or thought I was. Powerless. Invisible. Just another servant in Blackwater pack, useful only for bandaging wounds and scrubbing floors. Then they tried to force me into a mate bond with their alpha, a male so broken by torture that his wolf had retreated into madness, leaving him trapped between forms and slowly dying. The ritual was supposed to save him. Use me as a tool to call his beast back from the abyss. Instead, it shattered the seal on my true nature. Revealed that I wasn't human at all, I was silver blood, the last of a bloodline hunted to extinction 30 years ago because our abilities let us command any wolf that existed. The bond formed anyway. Not through force, but through genuine recognition. I pulled his wolf back from darkness. And he gave me something no one else ever had, the choice to walk away. I took it. Spent 6 months with the only other silver blood survivors, learning to control powers that could enslave thousands or heal bonds that were breaking. Learning what it meant to be the last princess of a murdered dynasty. Now I was coming home. Back to the mate who'd set me free. Back to the pack that had tried to trap me. Back to prove that silver blood power could strengthen instead of enslave. But Trinity Alliance, the wolves who'd orchestrated the genocide 30 years ago, had other plans. They wanted me dead before I could reach Blackwater's protection. Before I could prove that the lies they'd told to justify slaughtering children in their beds were exactly that, lies. Now. The Trinity warrior's blade sliced across my ribs, drawing blood that shimmered silver in the moonlight. I didn't flinch. Just grabbed his pack bond and twisted until his wolf whimpered in submission. "You can't win," he gasped as I forced him to his knees. "There are hundreds of us. One silver blood can't." I crushed his bond completely, severing his connection to his alpha with enough force that he screamed. "I'm not just any silver blood," I said quietly, feeling power pulse through me like a living thing. "I'm the one they should have killed first." The remaining warriors hesitated, suddenly uncertain. They'd been told silverbloods were powerful but vulnerable to coordinated attacks. That suppression collars and silver weapons could neutralize us. They hadn't been told what happened when you cornered one of us and made us choose between submission and survival. I chose survival. Silver light exploded from me in a nova that washed over every Trinity wolf within 200 yards. I grabbed their bonds simultaneously, didn't bother with subtle control, just hammered their wolves into forced submission with all the power I'd been holding back. They dropped like puppets with cut strings. The strain hit immediately. Controlling this many wolves at once pushed my abilities past anything I'd attempted during training. My nose started bleeding. My vision blurred. Every instinct screamed that I was burning myself out, that maintaining this much control would kill me if I held it too long. But I only needed to hold it long enough to run. I released the control and bolted for Blackwater territory, hearing the disabled warriors start to recover behind me. They'd be confused, disoriented, but mobile again within minutes. I had that long to put distance between us. The mate bond pulsed ahead of me like a beacon. My alpha, my partner, the male who'd given me freedom and asked only that I come back when I was ready. I was ready now. Ready to stand beside him. Ready to use everything I'd learned to protect the pack that had become home. Ready to show Trinity Alliance that hunting silverbloods was about to become far more dangerous than they'd ever imagined. If I could just reach Blackwater's border before they caught up. I crashed through the tree line at Blackwater's border doing roughly 40 miles per hour, covered in blood, some mine, most not, with Trinity warriors 30 seconds behind me. The feral alpha was already there. He stood at the border with his beta and 20 warriors in full combat formation, like he'd known I was coming. Like he'd felt my desperation through the bond and mobilized his entire defense force in the time it took me to run 3 miles. Our eyes met across 50 yards of neutral ground, and the relief that crashed through our bond nearly buckled my knees. Then Trinity broke through the trees behind me, and relief transformed into cold fury. "Ambush!" I shouted, still running. 20 warriors, suppression mages, silver weapons, they were waiting for me. The feral alpha's expression went absolutely lethal. "Cross the border," he commanded, his voice carrying alpha authority that made even my silver blood instincts want to obey. Now. I put on a final burst of speed and dove across the invisible line that marked Blackwater territory. The moment my feet touched protected ground, the pack's defensive formation shifted to surround me, warriors placing themselves between their Luna and the Trinity forces that had chased me home. The Trinity warriors skidded to a halt at the border, smart enough not to cross into another Alpha's territory without declaration of war. "That's Blackwater's Luna," their commander said, trying for diplomatic even though we could all smell his frustration. "She attacked our patrol unprovoked. We're within our rights to demand she answer for. You ambushed her in neutral territory with suppression collars and silver chains," the feral Alpha interrupted, his voice colder than I'd ever heard it. "Don't insult me with claims of unprovoked attack." "How did you?" The commander stopped, realizing the trap he'd just walked into. "The mate bond tells me everything she feels," my Alpha continued, stepping forward until he was inches from the border himself. "I felt her terror when your chains wrapped around her throat. Felt her pain when your blade opened her ribs. Felt her desperation as she fought for her life against 23 warriors who thought one silver blood would be easy prey." The Trinity commander's face went pale. "We were operating under orders. From Alphas who want my mate dead," he finished. "Which means Trinity Alliance just declared war on Blackwater Pack." I suggest you run back to your masters and tell them exactly how catastrophic their mistake was. This isn't over. You're right, I said, stepping up beside my mate even though every injury was screaming and my power was dangerously depleted. Silver light pulsed weakly beneath my skin, but it was enough to make the Trinity warriors flinch. Because the next time you come at me, I won't hold back. I'll show you exactly what silver blood power looks like when I stop being merciful. The commander looked at us, Alpha and Luna standing together, our combined power making the air itself feel heavy, and made the smart choice. He retreated. The moment Trinity was out of sight, my mate caught me as my legs finally gave out. I've got you, he murmured against my hair. You're safe. You're home. Through the bond, I felt 6 months of separation collapse into relief so profound it hurt. He'd changed, become stronger, more controlled, absolutely lethal in ways the broken Alpha I'd left behind hadn't been. But the way he held me, like I was precious and terrifying in equal measure, was exactly the same. They were waiting for me, I said against his chest. Knew my route, my timing. They have intelligence we don't. I know. His voice went grim. We have bigger problems than Trinity knowing your schedule. But first, he pulled back enough to examine my injuries, his expression darkening at the silver-edged cut across my ribs. First we get you to the healers. I'm fine. You're bleeding silver and can barely stand, he interrupted. We're going to the healers. Then we're going to discuss how Trinity knew exactly where to find you. And then, his eyes flashed with predatory promise. Then we're going to make them regret ever touching what's mine. The possessiveness should have bothered me. Instead, it just made me feel safe for the first time in days. I brought reinforcements, I managed. Kira and 5 warriors from the western settlement. They're a few hours behind me, had to split up when Trinity attacked. We'll send scouts to meet them. He lifted me into his arms despite my weak protest. Right now, you need healing and rest. Everything else can wait. As he carried me toward the pack house, I felt the stares from Blackwater wolves who'd gathered to see what the commotion was about. Some I recognized from my time as a powerless healer. Others were new, wolves who'd joined the pack in my absence. Drawn by rumors of an alpha who'd recovered from madness. They were looking at me differently than they had 6 months ago. Not as a servant or a tool, but as their Luna. Someone who'd fought off 23 Trinity warriors and lived to tell about it. Someone dangerous enough that enemies came prepared with suppression magic and still lost. I'd left Blackwater as a captive awakening to power she didn't understand. I was returning as a Luna who'd learned exactly what she was capable of, and who was about to remind everyone why Silver Bloods had once been feared and respected in equal measure. Trinity wanted war. They were about to get it. The first pack meeting was tense enough to shatter glass. I stood beside the feral Alpha, my mate now in truth, the bond fully accepted and burning between us, and faced the assembled Blackwater wolves with Kira and 5 other Silver Blood warriors flanking me. The hall was packed. Word had spread fast that the Luna had returned, and every wolf who could walk had shown up to see what 6 months of absence had turned me into. Some faces I recognized from my time as a healer's assistant, wolves I'd bandaged and served and cleaned up after when I'd been nothing but a powerless human in their eyes. The expressions looking back at me ranged from curious to openly hostile. For those who weren't present 6 months ago, the feral Alpha began, his voice carrying absolute authority. This is my mate and your Luna. She is Silver Blood, last surviving member of the original wolf bloodline blessed directly by the moon goddess. She is the reason I'm standing here whole instead of dead from bond dissolution. I felt the shift in the room as wolves who hadn't known processed that information. Silver Blood. The word itself carried weight, wrapped in 3 decades of propaganda about tyranny and justified genocide. She has returned, he continued, with warriors from the Western Silver Blood settlement and information about threats facing our pack. She will explain. He stepped aside, giving me the floor. A gesture of trust and partnership that didn't go unnoticed. I let silver light pulse once beneath my skin, just enough to remind them what I was, before speaking. Trinity Alliance is moving against us, I said bluntly. No point in softening it. They've been consolidating power in the eastern territories for years, and my existence threatens their entire structure. A silverblood Luna mated to a powerful alpha represents the kind of partnership they can't control through normal pack politics. So they'll come at us, someone in the back called out. How many? When? I don't know the timeline, I admitted. But I know they're planning something, and I know they have resources we don't. Mages who specialize in breaking bloodline abilities, weapons designed to kill silverblood specifically, and 3 decades of experience hunting my kind. The silence that followed was grim. There's more, I continued. They have a spy in this pack. Someone who's been feeding them information for at least 2 months. The explosion of voices was immediate, denials, accusations, wolves turning on each other with suspicion that could tear the pack apart if left unchecked. The feral alpha let it go for exactly 5 seconds before his power crashed through the hall like a tidal wave, forcing every wolf into submission through nothing but dominant presence. Quiet, he commanded, and the silence was instantaneous. He looked at me, a question in his eyes. How do we handle this? I answered through the bond. Let me show them what silver blood power is really for. Out loud, I said, I can find the spy. My abilities allow me to sense pack bonds, to feel the connections linking you all together. A wolf who's betrayed their pack will have bonds that feel wrong. Corrupted. I can identify them without accusation or guesswork. And if you're wrong, an older female challenged. If you accidentally target an innocent wolf because your power isn't as precise as you claim? Fair question. Terrifying answer. Then I'll submit to whatever punishment the alpha deems appropriate, I said quietly. Including exile or death. I won't abuse this ability, and I'll prove that by putting my own life on the line as guarantee. The feral alpha's growl vibrated through the bond. He absolutely hated that offer. But he didn't contradict me, because he understood what I was doing, proving that silver blood power came with responsibility. That I wouldn't use my abilities without consequences. Do it, he said aloud. I closed my eyes and reached out with senses that still felt new and overwhelming. The pack bonds blazed in my awareness like threads of gold light, connecting each wolf to their alpha in patterns of loyalty and trust. Most were clean, bright, healthy. But one. My eyes snapped open, focusing on a male near the back of the hall. Mid-30s, unremarkable features, the kind of wolf who blended into the background and was easy to overlook. His bond was diseased. Twisted with guilt and fear and a desperate kind of greed that poisoned everything it touched. Him, I said, pointing. The male's eyes widened. I don't, this is insane. Search his quarters, the feral alpha commanded. 2 warriors moved immediately, dragging the protesting male with them. They returned 15 minutes later with a communication crystal, the kind used for long-distance messaging between territories, and a journal filled with detailed notes about my training schedule, abilities, weaknesses. Every page was a knife in my back. Trinity promised me status, the male spat as they forced him to his knees. Said when they took over Blackwater I'd be rewarded for my service. This pack was dying under a broken alpha, I was just ensuring I'd survive the transition. The feral alpha's expression went absolutely cold. You sold out your Luna. Your pack. Your alpha. For the promise of scraps from wolves who committed genocide. She's not a real Luna, the male shouted. She's an abomination. Her kind enslaved packs for centuries. Enough. My voice cut through his tirade like a blade. I walked toward him slowly, letting silver light build with each step until it illuminated the entire hall. You want to know what my kind is capable of? What Trinity is so afraid of? I placed my hand on top of his head, and every wolf in the room gasped as I forced his beast to the surface against his will. He shifted involuntarily, bones cracking, screaming through the transformation because I was making it hurt in ways nature never intended. When he was fully wolf, trembling and whimpering, I spoke directly to his beast in the old language, words that carried power when spoken by silver-blood tongues. You are forsworn. Your bond to this pack is severed. Your wolf will never answer to another alpha again. You are exile made flesh. The golden thread connecting him to the feral alpha shattered like glass. The male, still in wolf form, howled in anguish as he felt the bond break, felt the pack connection that had defined his entire existence disappear like it had never been. Run, I commanded. And if you ever set foot in territory claimed by Blackwater or Silver Blood again, I will do worse than exile. I will erase your wolf entirely and leave you human and hollow for the rest of your miserable life. He ran. The pack watched in absolute silence as I turned to face them, silver light still dancing across my skin. That, I said quietly, is what silver blood power looks like when used as punishment. Does anyone else want to test whether I'm willing to use it? No one moved. No one spoke. Good. I let the light fade. Now let's discuss how we're going to survive what's coming. The War Council met that night in the Alpha's private chambers. Me, the feral Alpha, his beta, Kira, and the 6 warriors I'd brought from the Western settlement. Trinity won't move openly yet, Kira said, spreading a map across the table. Not after what you did to the spy. They'll regroup, reassess, figure out how much of their intelligence was compromised. Which gives us maybe 2 weeks, the beta added. 3 if we're lucky. We need allies, I said. Packs that will stand with us when Trinity comes. The northern territories are traditionally neutral, if we can convince them that Trinity's expansion threatens everyone, not just us. They won't risk war for a silver blood, the feral Alpha said bluntly. Not when the last time they backed our bloodline, it ended in genocide. The words stung because they were true. My ancestors' crimes, and the exaggerated stories about them, had poisoned the well for 3 generations. Then we don't ask them to stand for me, I countered. We ask them to stand against Trinity's consolidation. Make it about politics and territory, not bloodlines. While hiding what you are? Kira's tone was skeptical. The moment they see your abilities in combat, they'll know. And then you'll have enemies on all sides. I looked at the feral Alpha, feeling the bond pulse between us with shared understanding. Then we don't hide, he said, following my thought. We show them what a Silverblood Alpha partnership looks like when it's built on choice and trust instead of domination. Prove that our bond makes the pack stronger, not enslaved. That's a massive risk, the beta warned. Everything about this situation is a massive risk, I shot back. But I didn't survive genocide, didn't spend 6 months learning to control abilities that could enslave thousands, just to hide and hope Trinity forgets I exist. We go on offense. We build alliances through demonstration of strength and honor. We show the northern packs that silver blood power used correctly is an asset, not a threat. And if they reject you anyway, one of the silver blood warriors asked quietly. I met his eyes. Then we fight Trinity alone and make it hurt badly enough that the next pack considering genocide thinks twice. The silence that followed was heavy with understanding. We were talking about war. Real, bloody, pack-destroying war against enemies who had resources and experience we couldn't match through conventional means. Our only advantage was me. My abilities. The power that an entire species had tried to eradicate because they couldn't control it. I need to show you something, I said abruptly, making a decision. All of you. What I'm really capable of when I stop holding back. We moved to the training grounds, a secured area warded against outside observation. The Blackwater warriors followed, sensing something significant was about to happen. I stood in the center of the field and reached deep into the well of power that had been building since my awakening. Not the controlled pulses I'd been using. Not the gentle demonstrations meant to reassure. Everything. Silver light exploded from me in a wave that washed over every wolf present. Through their pack bonds, I felt their beasts respond, not with submission this time, but with strength. I poured power into their connections to the Alpha, reinforcing those bonds until they blazed like forge fire, making them stronger and more resilient than they'd ever been. The wolves gasped as they felt it, the sudden surge of strength, the clarity of purpose, the pack unity that went from abstract concept to physical reality they could feel in their bones. This is what I can do for allies, I said, my voice carrying silver blood resonance. Strengthen your pack bonds until your warriors can fight longer, heal faster, coordinate better than any normal pack. Make your beta's connection to your alpha so strong that they can operate as one mind in combat. Give your pack advantages that no amount of training or numbers can match. I pulled the power back and the light faded, but the strengthened bonds remained. And this, I continued, my tone going cold, is what I can do to enemies. I reached out and grabbed the pack bonds of 3 warriors I'd selected beforehand, volunteers who'd agreed to this demonstration. And I twisted. They dropped to their knees, crying out as I forced their wolves into submission so complete they couldn't even shift. Could barely breathe. Their beasts were pinned under my will like insects under glass, helpless and terrified. I held it for 5 seconds, long enough to make the point, then released them. They gasped, shaking, looking at me with expressions caught between awe and primal fear. Trinity Alliance has 3 alphas and approximately 600 warriors, I said into the shocked silence. If they come at us in force, I can probably disable half of them before their mages figure out how to counter my abilities. Which means you need to be good enough to handle the other half while I'm occupied. Can you actually manage 300 wolves? The beta asked, his voice carefully neutral. I don't know, I admitted. The most I've controlled at once was 30 during training. 300 might kill me from the strain, or it might work perfectly. I won't know until I try. Absolutely not, the feral alpha snarled. You're not using yourself as a test subject for mass domination. Then what do you suggest? I turned to face him. Because Trinity is coming whether we're ready or not, and my abilities are the only thing that gives us a fighting chance against their numbers. Your abilities plus strategy, he corrected. Plus the alliances we're going to build. Plus training our warriors to fight smarter, not just harder. He closed the distance between us, his hands framing my face with a gentleness that belied the fury in his eyes. You are not expendable. You don't get to burn yourself out saving everyone else. And you don't get to protect me from making my own choices about how to use my power, I shot back. But I softened it by pressing my forehead against his, letting the bond pulse with affection beneath the argument. We're partners, remember? Equals. Which means you don't get to veto my battle strategies just because they scare you. They don't just scare me. They terrify me. Because I know you well enough to understand that you'll spend yourself down to nothing if it means saving this pack. He wasn't wrong. The instinct to protect, to use every drop of my power for wolves who'd finally accepted me, ran bone deep. Then we train, I compromised. I push my limits in controlled environments, figure out exactly how much I can handle before the strain becomes dangerous. And we build backup plans that don't rely solely on me throwing power at problems until they go away. He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. Acceptable. But if I sense you pushing too hard through the bond, I'm pulling you out of training whether you like it or not. Deal. Kira cleared her throat. As touching as this is, we still need to address the actual problem. Trinity will move within weeks, and we're not remotely prepared. She was right. Demonstrations of power were impressive, but they didn't win wars. Strategy did. Preparation did. Allies did. We start with the northern packs, the feral alpha decided. Specifically, Iron Peak. Their alpha is old school but fair. If we can convince him that Trinity's expansion threatens everyone, he might be willing to stand with us, Silverblood Luna or not. And if he's not? Then we move to the next pack on the list and keep trying until someone agrees. His smile was sharp with predatory determination. Because one way or another, we're going to build a coalition strong enough to make Trinity think twice about declaring open war. It was ambitious. Possibly impossible. Definitely reckless. But looking around at the wolves watching me, Blackwater and Silverblood both. Bound together by shared purpose and the demonstrated proof that my power could strengthen rather than enslave, I felt something I hadn't experienced since waking up to my true nature. Hope. The meeting with Iron Peak's Alpha was arranged for neutral territory, a clearing 3 days' march north of Blackwater, with representation from 5 northern packs who'd agreed to hear us out. Remember, the feral alpha said as we approached the summit site, we're here to build alliances, not demonstrate dominance. Keep your power restrained unless directly challenged. I know how to play politics, I replied, adjusting the formal robes they'd dressed me in. Traditional Luna attire, designed to project authority and dignity. The silver embroidery caught light as I moved, and I'd deliberately chosen to let my silver blood mark show on my shoulder, hiding what I was would only breed suspicion. The clearing was already full when we arrived. 5 alphas with their betas and honor guards, all watching our approach with expressions ranging from cautious to openly hostile. I recognized Iron Peak's alpha immediately, an ancient male with silver hair and scars that spoke of surviving conflicts that would have killed lesser wolves. We'd brought a minimal escort, me, the feral alpha, his beta, and Kira. A show of trust that we weren't here to threaten. Blackwater, Iron Peak's alpha greeted, his voice gravelly with age. You requested this summit to discuss Eastern Territory movements. But rumor claims you've brought something far more controversial than politics. His eyes locked on me. This is my mate and Luna, the feral alpha said calmly. And yes, she is silver blood. The last of her kind, raised among us since infancy, bonded to me through fate rather than force. The reaction was immediate. Several alphas stepped back. One drew a weapon before his beta stopped him. The hostility in the air thickened until it was almost physical. You bring the cursed bloodline to neutral ground and expect us to negotiate? One alpha spat. Silverbloods enslaved packs for generations. And your territories participated in the genocide that murdered them down to infants, I interrupted quietly. The words hit like a slap, and I saw several wolves flinch. Shall we discuss who has more blood on their hands? Or can we move past 3 decades of propaganda and address the actual threat facing all of us? The girl has teeth, Iron Peak observed with what might have been approval. Very well. Speak your piece, Silverblood Luna. What threat is so dire that Blackwater would risk bringing you before us? I stepped forward, letting silver light pulse once beneath my skin, just enough to prove what I was. Trinity Alliance is consolidating, I said. They've absorbed 4 smaller packs in the past year through combinations of political pressure and outright intimidation. Their stated goal is to unify the Eastern Territories under a single banner, theirs. But their expansion won't stop at their borders. Trinity has always been ambitious, another alpha said dismissively. But they're also practical. Open war against multiple northern packs would be costly. Unless they eliminate the targets one at a time, Kira interjected. Isolate, overwhelm, absorb. Pick off anyone who might organize resistance before that resistance can actually form. And you believe you're their first target? Iron Peak asked me directly. I know I am, I replied. Because my existence proves that silver blood power can coexist with modern pack structures. That our abilities can strengthen bonds rather than enslave them. Trinity can't allow that narrative to spread. It undermines 3 decades of justification for genocide. I took a breath, then made the offer I'd been planning since we decided to attend this summit. I'll prove it, I said. Right here. Right now. I'll strengthen your pack bonds, all of you, and you can feel exactly what silver blood power does when used for protection instead of domination. No coercion. No tricks. Just demonstration. The silence was absolute. And if it's a trap, one alpha demanded. If you use that access to enslave us? Then my mate will kill me himself, I said simply, feeling the feral alpha's shock pulse through our bond. I looked at him. That's the deal. If I abuse this power, if I betray these alphas' trust, you end me. No hesitation. No mercy. Absolutely not, he started. Yes, I interrupted. Because they need to understand that I'm not my ancestors. That I'll put my own life on the line as guarantee that silver blood abilities come with responsibility. His fury through the bond was volcanic. But so was his understanding of what I was doing, proving that I could be trusted by making the consequences of betrayal absolute. If you harm my mate through false accusation, he said coldly to the assembled alphas, I'll burn your territories to ash. But if she genuinely betrays you, I'll honor her word. Iron Peak studied us both for a long moment, then nodded. Do it. But know that if this is deception, your entire pack will pay the price. I walked into the center of the clearing and opened myself to the power that had been straining at its leash since we'd arrived. Silver light erupted from my skin as I reached out with senses that could feel every pack bond in the clearing, 5 alphas, their betas, their honor guards, all connected through threads of gold that defined pack hierarchy and loyalty. And I strengthened them. Poured power into those connections until they blazed like stars, reinforcing the bonds until they were unbreakable, until the alphas could feel their pack's locations and emotional states with crystal clarity they'd never experienced before. Enhanced their betas' connections until the second-in-command partnerships became almost telepathic. Made their warriors more coordinated, their pack unity more profound. I showed them what silver blood power looked like when used the way the moon goddess had originally intended. The gasps and shocked exclamations told me the moment they felt it, the sudden surge of pack cohesion, the bonds that had been abstract concepts becoming tangible reality they could manipulate and strengthen through simple focus. When I pulled back, the silver light fading, every alpha in the clearing was staring at me with expressions that had shifted from hostility to something between wonder and fear. This will last? Iron Peak asked, his voice rough with emotion. Until the bonds naturally degrade over time or unless I actively break them, I confirmed. Weeks, probably. Maybe months for the strongest connections. And you could do this for entire territories? Strengthen thousands of pack bonds? I don't know my limits yet, I admitted. But theoretically, yes. If an alpha trusted me enough to grant access to their pack. The implications hung in the air like smoke. One silver blood could reshape the balance of power across the entire region. Could turn a medium-strength pack into an unstoppable force through nothing but enhanced bonds and unity. Could make allies formidable and enemies terrified. Trinity will kill you, Iron Peak said bluntly. Not just because you're silver blood, but because you're powerful enough to threaten their entire expansion strategy. If northern packs unite with bonds strengthened by your abilities, Trinity loses their numerical advantage. Yes, I agreed. Which is why I'm here. I need allies who understand that protecting me protects themselves. That my survival is tied to your continued independence. It was calculated. Pragmatic. Reducing my value to pure strategic advantage rather than appealing to morality or justice. But it was also truth. And these alphas were warriors, they understood strategy even if they mistrusted bloodlines. I'll stand with Blackwater, Iron Peak said finally. Not because I trust silver bloods, that trust will have to be earned over time. But because I can see the threat Trinity poses, and I'm old enough to remember when the northern territories were strong enough to tell the east to go to hell. One by one, the other alphas agreed. Some reluctantly, others with more enthusiasm, but all of them acknowledging that Trinity's expansion threatened everyone. We'd built a coalition. Small, fragile, held together more by mutual interest than actual trust. But it was a start. Trinity's response to our coalition came faster than expected. 3 days after the Northern Summit, scouts reported massive troop movements on the eastern border. Not probing parties, a full assault force. 600 warriors, 3 alphas, and a contingent of mages whose sole purpose was countering silver blood abilities. They weren't coming to negotiate. They were coming to end this before our alliances could solidify. We have maybe 12 hours before they reach our territory, the beta said, his face grim as he studied the reports. Iron Peak's forces are 2 days out. The other northern packs are even farther. So we fight alone, the feral alpha said flatly. How many can we field? 200 warriors at full strength. Maybe 250 if we arm every wolf who can hold a blade. The math was brutal. We were outnumbered 3-1, facing enemies who'd been preparing for this battle for months, with specialized weapons designed specifically to kill me. I can even the odds, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. If I can disable half their forces before the mages counter me, we're fighting 300 against our 200. Better odds. You said controlling 300 wolves might kill you, the feral alpha snarled. I said I didn't know my limits, I corrected. Now seems like an excellent time to find out. This is insane. This is war, I interrupted. And I'm not going to watch this pack die because I was too afraid to use the abilities I spent 6 months learning to control. Kira stepped forward. I'll anchor you. Silver blood healing can pull you back if the strain gets too severe. You won't be doing this alone. The feral alpha looked like he wanted to argue, but the bond between us pulsed with my absolute determination. Finally, he nodded. We hold the line until you've disabled their front ranks, he said, shifting into battle planning mode. Beta, organize our warriors into defensive formations. I want archers on the high ground, healers in protected positions, and our strongest fighters ready to capitalize the moment their formation breaks. Commands flew as the pack mobilized for war. I stood in the center of organized chaos, feeling the weight of what I was about to attempt settling across my shoulders like a physical burden. If this goes wrong, the feral alpha started. Then you'll know I fought with everything I had, I finished. And you'll finish what we started. He pulled me into his arms, the bond blazing between us with savage devotion and terror in equal measure. Come back to me, he commanded against my throat. Always, I promised. But promises made before battle had a way of turning into lies when the fighting started. Trinity hit us at dawn with the kind of coordinated assault that spoke of serious military planning. Their warriors came in waves, first rank to test our defenses, second rank to exploit weaknesses, third rank to overwhelm through sheer numbers. Professional, brutal, designed to minimize their casualties while maximizing ours. I stood on the highest point of our territory with Kira at my side and let silver light build until it was visible from a mile away. Whenever you're ready, Kira said quietly. I reached out with every sense I'd developed over 6 months of training and felt Trinity's forces like bright points of hostile intent. 600 wolves, all connected to their 3 alphas through bonds of loyalty and hierarchy. And I grabbed those bonds with metaphysical hands and squeezed. The backlash hit like being struck by lightning. 600 consciousnesses fighting my control simultaneously, 600 wolves resisting the forced submission with everything they had. The strain was immediate and overwhelming. My nose started bleeding, my vision blurred, my hands shook with the effort of maintaining that many connections at once. But I held on. Forced their beasts down, pinned their wolves beneath my will, disabled them like someone had cut their strings. The front 3 ranks collapsed mid-charge, warriors dropping to their knees as I crushed their ability to fight through nothing but bloodline dominance. 200 wolves. I'd managed 200 before the mages figured out what I was doing. The counterspell hit like a battering ram, foreign magic designed specifically to disrupt silver blood abilities crashing into my consciousness with enough force to make me scream. Kira caught me before I fell, pouring healing energy into me as my control shattered and the disabled wolves began recovering. 200, I gasped. Did I get? You got them, Kira confirmed. And bought our warriors enough time to engage on better terms. Now rest. You've done your part. But I could still feel the battle through the bond, could sense my mate in the thick of fighting, could taste the desperation and fury of wolves defending their home against enemies who wanted them enslaved or dead. I couldn't rest. Not while they were still fighting. I pushed myself up, ignoring Kira's protest. And reached out again, but this time, instead of attacking Trinity's forces, I poured everything I had left into strengthening Blackwater's pack bonds. Every warrior on our side suddenly felt their alpha's presence like a forged fire in their chest, felt their pack unity become unbreakable, felt strength and coordination surge through them like they'd been fighting together their entire lives. The tide of battle shifted. Our wolves, already desperate to protect their territory, became absolutely unstoppable. They moved like a single organism, anticipated each other's attacks, covered weaknesses before they could be exploited. The feral alpha fought like something out of legend, his power amplified through our bond until he was literally tearing through enemy ranks. Trinity's forces faltered. Then broke. Then ran. We'd won. The cost was written in blood and exhaustion and warriors who'd fought past the point of collapse. But we'd won. I felt the moment the last Trinity wolf crossed back over our border, felt the feral alpha's savage satisfaction pulse through our bond. Then I felt nothing at all as the strain finally caught up with me and consciousness faded to black. I woke 3 days later in our private chambers with the feral alpha sitting beside the bed, looking like he hadn't slept since the battle ended. "You're awake," he said, and the relief in his voice made my chest ache. "We won?" My voice came out rough, throat raw from screaming during the magical backlash. "Decisively. Trinity lost over 100 warriors and all 3 of their alphas retreated. The Northern Coalition arrived the day after the battle and has been helping secure our borders ever since." He took my hand, his grip gentle despite the barely restrained emotion. "You disabled 200 of their warriors and strengthened our entire pack through sheer will. You were magnificent and terrifying, and I'm never letting you do that again." I managed a weak smile. "We both know that's not your decision to make." "I know. Which is why I'm asking instead of commanding." His eyes held mine. "Please. Please don't push yourself that hard again. Because watching you collapse while I was too far away to catch you was the worst moment of my entire existence." The raw honesty in his voice, the terror that still lingered in our bond, made me soften. "I'll try to find less suicidal ways to use my abilities," I compromised. "But I won't promise to never push myself. Not when our survival depends on what I can do." He nodded, accepting it because he understood that limitations weren't something I could afford. Not when I was the only silver blood Luna in 3 generations and our enemies wanted me dead. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now?" His smile was sharp with predatory satisfaction. "Now we've proven that Blackwater pack, led by a bonded alpha and silver blood Luna, can hold territory against superior numbers. Word has spread. Trinity is in chaos trying to reorganize. And the Northern Coalition is discussing making our alliance permanent." "And the other territories? The ones that participated in the genocide?" "Scared," he said bluntly. "Because you showed that silver blood power used correctly makes conventional warfare almost impossible. That a single Luna with proper training can reshape entire battles." I processed that, feeling the weight of implications. I'd wanted to prove that my bloodline could integrate with modern packs. Instead, I'd proven that we were powerful enough to dominate them. "We need to be careful," I said slowly. "I can't become the tyrant they feared my ancestors were." "You won't," he said with absolute certainty. "Because you have something your ancestors never had, restraint born from understanding what it feels like to be powerless. You know what it's like to be at the bottom of the hierarchy. That knowledge will keep you honest." I hoped he was right. Because the temptation to use my abilities to reshape the world into something fairer was already whispering seductively in the back of my mind. A knock at the door interrupted us. Kira entered, looking exhausted but triumphant. "Iron Peak wants to meet," she said. "Says he has a proposal you'll want to hear." We gathered in the Great Hall 2 hours later, me, the feral alpha, Iron Peak, and representatives from the 4 other northern packs who'd stood with us. The Northern Territories haven't had a high council in 3 generations, Iron Peak began without preamble. "We dissolved it after the Silver Blood Purge because trust between packs was destroyed. But recent events have proven that isolation makes us vulnerable to threats like Trinity." He looked directly at me. "I propose we reform the High Council with you as High Luna, a position that would give you authority to strengthen pack bonds across all Northern Territories, to coordinate defenses, to use your abilities for the collective good." The silence was absolute. "You want to put a silver blood in charge of a multi-pack alliance?" I said carefully. "I want to put the wolf who saved Blackwater from overwhelming odds in a position where she can save all of us," Iron Peak corrected. "With proper checks and balances, of course. The council would vote on major decisions. Your mate would serve as High Alpha, balancing your power with his own authority. But yes, I'm proposing we embrace what you are instead of fearing it." It was everything I'd fought for. Recognition. Respect. The chance to prove silver blood abilities could strengthen rather than enslave. It was also terrifying. This much power, this much authority over thousands of wolves, was exactly what had corrupted my ancestors. I looked at the feral alpha, feeling the bond pulse between us with his steady, certain support. He'd trust my decision either way. I accept, I said finally. On one condition. The High Council gets veto power over my use of silver blood abilities. I won't have unchecked authority. If I cross lines or abuse my power, you have the right to remove me from the position, forcibly if necessary. Agreed, Iron Peak said immediately. Though I suspect we'll never need to use that veto. You've already proven you value restraint over domination. The other alphas nodded their acceptance. Just like that, I became High Luna of the Northern Territories. The first silver blood to hold legitimate political authority in 3 generations. And the target on my back grew about 1,000 times larger. 6 months after the Battle of Blackwater, I stood on our territory's highest point and looked out over land that had become home in ways I never expected. The Northern Territories were flourishing. Pack bonds I'd strengthened held strong, creating cooperation and unity that hadn't existed in decades. Trade increased. Conflicts got resolved through negotiation instead of violence. The whole region was becoming something stronger, better, more resilient than it had been in generations. And Trinity had fractured. 2 of their alphas had been overthrown by wolves tired of expensive wars over ideological purity. The third had retreated so deep into his territory that rumors claimed he'd gone feral from the stress. The threat wasn't gone, it would never be fully gone while wolves remembered the stories of silver blood tyranny. But it was managed. Contained. Reduced to something we could handle through vigilance and coalition strength. I felt the feral alpha approach before he touched me, the bond between us so strong now that we were rarely out of each other's awareness. His arms wrapped around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. Thinking about how far we've come, he asked. Thinking about how much farther we still have to go, I corrected. The Eastern Territories are still hostile. There are probably other silver blood survivors out there who heard what happened and are deciding whether to reveal themselves or stay hidden. And we have no idea how long this peace will last before someone decides we're getting too powerful and needs to be put down. Optimistic as always, he said dryly. Realistic, I countered. But I leaned back into his embrace, letting myself feel safe for this moment even knowing that tomorrow would bring new threats. Do you ever regret it? The bond? The chaos it's brought into your life? Never. The word was absolute. You saved me. Made me stronger. Gave me a purpose beyond just surviving. I'd go through everything again if it meant ending up here with you. I turned in his arms to face him properly, seeing the sincerity in his amber eyes. They wanted to force me to save you, I said quietly. To trap me in a bond one didn't choose and use me like a tool. Instead, you gave me the choice to walk away. That's what changed everything, not the prophecy, not the mate bond, but the fact that you treated me like a person with agency when no one else did. You deserved the choice, he said simply. And I deserved a mate who chose me freely instead of being forced. The bond between us pulsed with gold and silver light, visible in the gathering dusk. Our combined power, woven together into something that had literally reshaped the political landscape of an entire region. What happens next? I asked. Next. His smile was predatory and full of the kind of savage devotion that made my breath catch. Next we keep building. Keep strengthening our coalition. Keep proving that silver bloods and alphas working together can create something better than what came before. And if enemies come? Then we'll face them together. He pulled me closer, his forehead pressing against mine. Because that's what mates do. What partners do. We stand together against the darkness and refuse to let it win. I kissed him then. Pouring everything I felt through the bond and the physical connection, love and trust and the fierce certainty that whatever came next, we'd handle it together. The blood on his hands was still fresh when I'd realized what he'd become, not a broken monster, but a powerful alpha who'd fought his way back from madness to stand beside a Luna who'd fought her way up from nothing. We were dangerous together. Unstoppable when we chose to be. Exactly the kind of partnership that could reshape the world or burn it down depending on what we decided was necessary. But most importantly, we were free. Free to choose each other daily. Free to build something better than what our ancestors had created. Free to prove that power came with responsibility and that bonds forged in choice were stronger than any force through prophecy or ritual. The darkness hadn't won. And as long as we stood together, it never would. They said he was too broken to bond. They said her bloodline was too dangerous to trust. They were wrong on both counts. This is the story of how a captive healer became a High Luna, how a feral alpha remembered how to lead, and how a bond forged in defiance became strong enough to reshape an entire region. The Northern Territories stand united for the first time in 3 generations. Trinity Alliance lies in ruins. And the wolves who once committed genocide against Silverbloods now kneel to a High Luna who proved that power used correctly can heal instead of destroy. But peace is fragile, and enemies never truly forget. Kindly support the channel by subscribing and sharing the stories. This story is reaching wolves all over the world. Drop a comment and let me know where you're part of the pack. I respond to every single one because you're not just watching, you're building this world with me.